Welcome to the Success Talk Show, the podcast for ambitious leaders who want to get their best results and create a workplace for their teams to thrive. Each week we share practical advice to help you accelerate your success and grow as an inspiring leader. Now here's your host, Leadership Success Coach, Donna Siriani.
Welcome to another episode of the Success Talk Show. This is Donna Siriani, Leadership Success Coach and founder of Success Compass Academy. In this episode, I'll be sharing practical strategies with you for how you can build trust with others to increase your leadership success. But before we dive into the strategies, if you're listening for the first time, I'd like to take a quick minute to introduce myself. I've spent my entire career in technology, started off as a programmer out of college and worked my way up to senior leadership roles in technology organizations, managing teams across US, Europe, and Asia. My last corporate role was as Chief People Officer for a software company. And as much as I love championing a fantastic company culture, winning a Best Place to Work award, I was drawn to leave that corporate role behind to become a full-time coach and consultant. So now I help leaders in technology accelerate growth both for themselves personally and for their organizations while creating a workplace for their teams to thrive. So, okay, let's get back to building trust. First, I'd like you to think about what's on your mind right now for building trust. Is there someone you'd like to build a stronger relationship with? And, maybe you're recognizing that they need to trust you even more than they do today. This could be your boss. It could be the CEO, who might be your boss. It could be a board member. Maybe it's an important client. It could be members of your own team. As the leader, you want them to trust your vision, your guidance. Trust that you're supporting them and guiding the team in the right direction. So what's the impact if you have the level of trust that you most want in these relationships? It could mean that you get the bigger assignments, you get the promotion with more responsibility. It could mean that you're entrusted to work with the biggest clients. It could be that people you're working with are more willing to accept your ideas and follow your lead. You will see tangible evidence that people trust you by the actions they take or their behavior. Now, for me personally, my view of trust from a business perspective changed dramatically when a company I was working for many years ago focused on trust as a key theme for us to improve as an organization. And at that time, a colleague of mine who was in the learning and development organization became trained in the Stephen Covey program based on the best-selling book, The Speed of Trust. We all got a copy of the book, we went through the workshop, and it was really powerful. And for me, it was a game changer. Trust was my number one value. It was, to me, building trust, having trust with my colleagues, my clients, and my staff, etc., was, to me, everything was built on trust. But I'd never had training in it, never read a book on it until this workshop. So what I learned has stayed with me really for many years. Now, one of the pivotal learnings as a takeaway was the fact that trust actually has a benefit and a cost to the organization. So what does it cost the organization when there isn't trust, when trust is decaying? Well, by the actions that aren't being taken, when decisions are delayed, when people are reluctant to follow, then this does affect the business, right? Goes right to the bottom line. So I'll give you a quick example for myself of something that happened shortly after I went through the training. I was working with a colleague who I had very, very low trust in. I questioned his intentions, his motives, his capabilities, really distrusted this person quite a bit. And they asked me to do something, to take an action or make a decision on something. And I got this long email and I immediately distrusted what was his hidden agenda. If I do it, is this going to take me in the wrong direction? I really questioned everything about the request. it took me 6 weeks before I took action. And the reason I dragged my feet is I was doing a little research, checking with his boss, thinking it over, talking to him some more, because I really was suspicious. Now, another colleague could have asked me to do the exact same thing, and it would have taken me 5 minutes. Now, why the difference? Well, it was all about trust. Now, as it turned out, I don't know if I was right or wrong. That's not really the point. But in this case, I felt like I had a really good reason not to trust this person. We all think we've got a good reason. So I'm going to break it down for you a little bit more in terms of steps that you can take so that you're not that person, but clearly you will not only increase your own leadership success by deliberately building trust with other people, but you're also improving the effectiveness of your organization, because think about what that cost. If I dragged my feet for 6 weeks and I really could have done it in 5 minutes, what's the cost? How much time did I put into my detective work to figure out if this was legit? So that's not a good thing. You know yourself when you are trying to work with a colleague, work with a client, that all of the delays and inaction or research, double checking, because there's lack of trust, that's time spent, maybe opportunity missed, and that all affects the bottom line of the business, right? So not only, my main goal for today in this episode is to help you build trust to increase your own leadership success. But oh, by the way, by you focusing on that and making improvements, you're also helping your organization. You're helping the business, because you are going to see results that perhaps otherwise might not have occurred. And I'm sure you have many examples of where you've seen this yourself. So now what I want to do is let's dive into the strategies. Now, there are 5 specific ways that you can build trust. Now, trust is such a big topic. There are many, many more things that you can do. But for today's episode, I really want to focus on 5. And these are the 5 that, for me, I see over and over again, not only in my own career, but with my coaching clients. And for you to build trust with other people, the place to start is, number 1, looking at your abilities, your capabilities. When you are trying to build trust with somebody, think about what are the abilities that you're bringing to that relationship that you're really asking that other individual to rely on. For example, your strengths, what you're good at, your experience, your credentials, your knowledge, your qualifications, skills, knowledge, experience. Now, when you're asking, you're hoping or implying, you're anticipating that other individual is going to have trust in you. This could be your boss, a client, a member of your team, right? What abilities are you bringing to the table? Now, they may trust you completely as an individual, right? They like you, they know you, they trust you. But maybe the task at hand, the issue at stake, has more to do with your competence, okay? And they maybe will or won't trust you based on what is required. So let me give you an example. I once worked with someone. I actually worked for him for a little while. He was a brilliant technology architect. He was brilliant with our technology, our products, our solution, our infrastructure. Did we trust him as a colleague to present our architecture to a client, to make recommendations on where we should make improvements, what the next iteration should be? Absolutely. He was brilliant at that. But did we trust him to lead a project, lead a team of people that required a lot of organizational skills to, pull all the pieces together and focus on execution? No, not really, because his forte was in the technology. Being that project manager focused on implementation was not his strong suit. So when you say, do we trust him? Well, it depends. What are you looking for him to do? If you're looking for him to be that architect, absolutely, trusted him 100%. Respect, trust, admire. So my point in this particular story is, when you're looking for people to trust you, you need to know your abilities in detail. Be self-aware, be realistic. If you're looking for your boss, for example, to trust for you to take on more responsibilities, a bigger client, take on other teams, whatever it is. What is it about your abilities which would foster that trust? Okay, so this is where you want to be self-aware. And you might say, well, what do I do? Okay, for anything that you're looking, when you're trying to build trust, focus on your strengths, right? Your strengths, your experience, your credentials, what you already know. If you're asking somebody to trust you on something that isn't your strength, you maybe have never done it. Okay, that might be someone having faith in you that you work hard enough and you do tend to get results. We'll get to that in a minute. But start by being honest with yourself about your abilities and what you're actually asking people to have trust in you for. Okay, so that's step number one would be if you are not as clear on your strengths, then step number one includes you gaining that level of clarity, doing some self-reflection, assessment, evaluation. What are you really good at? Where are you getting your best results? Okay. Now, there's all kinds of assessments that you can take. You could do the StrengthsFinder assessment. You could look at your past performance reviews, think about the input and feedback you've gotten from other people, the good feedback you've gotten around where you've really made your biggest contribution. But spend some time. If you're not clear, then you've really got to do that first, because that is going to have a huge impact on where people trust you or hold back that trust. Okay. Now, the second place that I want you to look is your authenticity. Now, by that, what I mean, I know that word's used a lot, but there needs to be consistency and congruence in how you present yourself. Now, obviously, you don't want to try to be somebody else. You don't want to present yourself in a light where you're maybe giving a false impression of who you are, what's important to you, what you're good at. Let me give you a story to illustrate my point. I worked with somebody who was new to the company, and right off the bat, he was acting in a way that just seemed disingenuous. There was a lot of bravado, a lot of very aspirational as to what he thought his impact was going to be. He seemed to be making really bold statements about what he'd already done in his first couple of weeks and where he was going to take the organization. Really, a lot of red flags went off for me. Now, what happens is when you're presenting yourself to somebody and they don't know you very well, and then as they get to know you, they start to see a disconnect between what you're saying and what you're doing, how you're presenting yourself and how you really behave. That disconnect, that can be subtle, but it could send off red flags. So then what the impact that has on someone else is they start to not trust you. Like something's not quite right. And in this case, this individual really came on strong. And, as I went to some client meetings with him and interacted with him on some business issues, I could see that how he was presenting himself and then how he actually conducted himself, there was a huge difference. And again, that's a red flag. Now, you're not quite sure if you trust this person because they don't seem to be very self-aware. They're trying to be somebody they're not. Really inflating or, just misrepresenting themselves. So authenticity is important. Now, the action here for you is to really clarify who you are and what you have to offer. Own it, step into it, claim it, and don't try to be somebody else, because how you're going to be received, embraced, appreciated is when you're really just being yourself, right? What you're good at, what your values are, what you're passionate about, your style, your personality, what you want to be known for. Basically, what I'm describing here is your personal brand. When you're authentic and you're really being true to yourself, that is when you are going to establish more trust, right? Because when you're being very genuine, very sincere, very authentic, people can see it, right? Now, when you try to be somebody you're not, you may think that you're putting on a good show, but people can sense it, their intuition, they'll see it, it'll send off a red flag, and then now that trust factor is going to be eroded. So the action here is get really clear. And now I take clients through this process all the time. I have a program. If you're interested, if that seems a little bit daunting, you're not quite sure how to chip away at that set of actions, take a look at one of my programs. You can go into the website donnasirianni.com, or you could go right to myownsuccesscompass.com. And there I give you an overview of a program that I have. Will help you through it. But in any case, this is you getting really clear on what you have to offer and being very authentic. Okay, so that was step number 2. Now, step number 3 is around integrity. Now, integrity is a really big topic, but again, back to congruency, people need to see that what you say and what you do are congruent. Okay, now, one step here that you can take is to get really clear on your top values, 5 to 8. And usually I say start with 5. What are those professional values? They're so important to you that they drive your own level of satisfaction. Now, if you're not really clear on how to identify your values and how to use those to guide your choices, decisions, behavior, you could listen to episode 28 of this podcast, and I give you more guidance on how to use your values. But I'll give you a quick story. I had a client who was a senior executive for a consulting firm, and she was meeting with a new prospect and negotiating a new contract, a big initiative that was going to be a game changer for her within this industry and big game changer for her firm. But what was guiding how she interacted and how she behaved with this new client was her set of values. Now, integrity, fairness, transparency, honesty, there were certain values that she had that were so important to her. They served as her personal code of conduct. And when she was going to be dealing with this client, she had those values top of mind of how she was going to conduct herself so that that would set the stage for that entire client relationship. When they sign the contract, become her client, they work together over a period of time. If that client were to check with another past client for a reference, there would be congruency, consistency between how she was acting with this new client and how she's acted with other clients that she's had for a long time. They'd be talking about the same person. Yep, that sounds like her. And so for integrity, people that you are working with, your boss, your colleagues, your employees, your clients, they're going to notice immediately through all of your actions, what you say and what you do, if they feel that you have high integrity, right? Typically, it's, you're acting in alignment with a set of values, and they can see that you're doing what's right. You're doing what's best for the situation, for the organization, doing what's best for the client, but you're adhering to some code of conduct that is bigger than yourself. So integrity, right? People need to see that you have integrity. That makes sense, right? So the steps that you can take for that, again, are make sure that for yourself, you identify a set of values, top 5. Again, go back to episode 28. I'll go into more detail on how you can identify those. But those values are going to be so important for you. You can even introduce them in conversation when you're talking to people. You don't have to say, here's my list of 5. But in speaking with somebody, you can say, well, transparency is so important to me. I really want to share with you more background information about the situation. Or I want, in the spirit of being fully transparent, I really want to make sure we discuss this more fully. So you're able to interject into conversation the things that are really important to you. And by revealing them over time, people will be able to make that connection about your integrity. So anyway, integrity is, obviously of huge importance. Now, the next one I want to talk about is intent. When you are trying to build trust with other people, they need to see not only your motives, but they want to really feel confident that there's a mutually beneficial relationship here. That this isn't all about you, right? You personally, your career, what makes you look good, you getting ahead. If they sense that you've got hidden agendas, your motives aren't entirely in line with their goals, then that's going to chip away at trust, okay? So the action here is think about who would be most important for you right now to build a stronger relationship with. Again, could be your boss, a client, another executive at the firm, somebody that you work with, a peer. But think about a specific relationship where you recognize that there are some trust issues. And think about what you could do. Here's the action. Think about what you could do to increase the benefit, how mutually beneficial this relationship could be. What can you do to support that other person? What can you do for them, for their organization, right? And then what is it in reverse? What is it you're looking for? But if it isn't mutually beneficial, if it's one-sided, then you are going to erode that level of trust, okay? So think about what you can do. Now, when you nurture those relationships, think of it as going back to the financial impact, how trust affects the bottom line. You think about how you're making deposits to that trust account. You're making deposits over time. And when the tables are turned and now you're looking for that person to trust you, there's a track record, there's history. You've made a lot of deposits. They trust you. So then when you're that person making that request, instead of dragging their feet for 6 weeks, maybe it takes 5 minutes. They trust you completely. You've had this really solid, trusting relationship for a while. And now, boom, that decision gets made. They offer help, whatever it is. Now, I'm sure you can think of situations where that's happened. I know for me, when my company had transferred me to Asia, and I needed to make requests back to the US, different time zone. I'm not living there anymore. I'm like on the other side of the world. I need to make a request of somebody. There were many situations where I needed things to be done fairly quickly. And I'm really relying on that trust that we've built up for that to happen without me being physically present, walking down the hall, taking them for coffee, right? And so there were many, many times when the level of trust that I had established allowed me to get things done much more quickly with much less effort because I had made all those deposits around trust. I had built up those relationships. Now, that's important, right? Because now your team, in terms of your leadership success, your team is counting on you to make things happen for them, for the organization, for the team, for your clients. And if you are not good at building these trusting relationships, what's going to happen when you're trying to get people to do things for you, for the team, for the client? They're not available. They're not answering your email. They don't respond to your voicemail. They're not really giving you the time of day. That's not a good place to be, right? So we all know that when you're building these trusting relationships, not only is it good for the organization overall, but now your team is going to see what you're doing on behalf of the organization, the positive impact that's going to have. And so they're going to trust you even more as their leader. Now, I'll just give you a story of how important this is. I did work for a boss once who I thought he was a terrific guy, loved his personality, very smart. He had a background that was really interesting, but I didn't trust him to do what was best for our organization because he was always looking out for making himself look good, his career, and does that sound familiar? Do you know somebody like that? Now, I liked him a lot, but I knew that if I asked him to do something on behalf of our team that our team needed for, a project, a program, some initiative we were working on, and he was the person who had to go and speak maybe with another executive, I didn't really trust him to do it because even how he would respond. I remember one instance where I asked him to speak with another senior executive, somebody that was more senior to him. And his response was, if I happen to be speaking with him, I'll try to remember to bring it up. Well, this was a critical issue. That's not good enough, right? So my trust in him was not high. It was not a mutually beneficial relationship most of the time. Some of the time it was, but only when it really directly helped him personally. So you've got to think about this. There are many leaders out there who, fit this description, but what's the type of leader that you want to be, right? Do you want people, and we're talking about intent here, your motives. If you really want to think about that person that you want to build a trusting relationship with right now. What can you do to genuinely support that person, their organization, their team? And how can you build that mutually beneficial relationship? Now, that's actually, just to give you an additional piece of information on that, that's also an emotional intelligence skill. Building mutually beneficial relationships is an emotional intelligence skill. And that, emotional intelligence is more important and even more impactful the higher up you go in your leadership career. So this is something you absolutely want to put some time and effort into. Okay, so that was your fourth set of actions. Now, the fifth and final dimension of trust, last but not least, because this is crucial, is you need to get results. You need to do what you say you're going to do. If you want to build trust with specific people, you need to be honoring the commitments that you make to them. Do what you say you're going to do. If you say you're going to follow up, you say you're going to handle something, you say you're going to be accountable and responsible for something, you have to get results. Now, when I say get results, that could be as simple as you followed up on an action item, you made the phone call, you sent the email, you gave the presentation, or whatever it is. But then there's the bigger aspect of getting results, right? You really move the needle for the organization on a big initiative, on some metrics, targets, client issues, signing up new clients, whatever it was. You need to get results. You need to be seen as somebody who gets it done. If you don't, then people might like you, but they're not going to place that trust in you because they're going to say, well, you're smart, you're capable, they like you, but you just don't get the job done. They don't trust you to get that big assignment or, even sometimes a little assignment. They might second guess you because, well, when their stakes are high, they don't want to count on you because you don't always get it done. Okay, so that you've got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, if you're trying to build trust with somebody, what is your track record with them? Are you following up? Are you getting it done? With what the bigger challenge is, what are the results that you're getting? Now, I know for myself, that has always been where my biggest focus was on being an achiever, getting results. Some of the other things around building relationships, being authentic, sharing integrity and sharing values, those are things I learned throughout my leadership career, but in my blood was always, I want to get the job done. That was the part that I was highly motivated on. So that was the piece that came naturally to me. And it paid off in my leadership career because there was one executive I worked for. He was an executive vice president at a large company, and he would hand me projects and assignments that were, really big challenges because he trusted me. He knew that I would get it done. Maybe it would be a 9-month project. I'd get it done in half the time. He trusted me. And when I left the company to move on, in his going away speech about me, he made comments. He said, the thing I most appreciated about Donna was she always got it done. I could hand her anything and she made sure it happened. Now, to me, because that's what motivated me, that was like the biggest compliment, ever. So that stayed with me, that, I knew he could count on me to hand me those big assignments because no matter how challenging, I got it done. So you've got to ask yourself, what is your track record? What are you accomplishing? And this isn't about your effort. If you put in 10-hour days, 12-hour days, you're working nights and weekends, you feel like you're working really hard, you've been at the company a long time, I've got to be honest with you, that doesn't count. That really doesn't matter. It only matters what results you're getting. And it sounds harsh, but I have a lot of clients who'll say to me, I'm working really hard. They tell me all the things they're doing, but it still comes back to, so what did you actually accomplish? What were the results? Effort is commendable, but the results are what really matter. Okay? So I can't emphasize that enough. Now, those are the 5 things I would really want you to focus on first. There's lots of other behaviors around building trust. The actions are about you looking at your own abilities, people trusting you that you know how to do what's needed. It's about you being authentic, really showing up in a way that's consistent and congruent with your personality, your personal brand. It's about your integrity, that you're acting in alignment with a set of values and people can see that you have high integrity. You're acting for the greater good, not just your own self-interest. It's about your intent. What are your motives? And are you building mutually beneficial relationships? And last is, are you getting results? Look at your track record, right? Do you do what you say you're going to do? So those are the 5 significant areas for you to look at to build trust to increase your leadership success. So with that, I'm going to leave you with that for this episode. And if some of you presenting yourself around your strengths, values, passions, your personal brand, you're really not clear on how to put those pieces together, I invite you to go to one of the programs that I have put hundreds of people through. It's myownsuccesscompass.com, and take a look at that because I guide people through those steps all the time. And it wouldn't surprise me that you may need some help on that because it does require a very thoughtful step-by-step process of self-reflection, gaining clarity, and then feeling really empowered and energized because you're clear on your message, what you want to be known for, and how you want to present yourself. Really powerful. And once you have that foundation, it can really help you accelerate your success. So with that, I thank you for listening, and I would love it if you actually subscribe to the podcast on iTunes so you won't miss a future episode. Anyway, thank you for listening, and you have a great day.